the Talksport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the Talksport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search Talksport Fan Network.
It's a bloody allergy. It is an allergy that we have got to Brentford. And of course, full time at Dean Court yesterday was AFC Bournemouth 1, Brentford 2. Yet again, the Bees have stung us where it hurts. We've got an allergic reaction to them. We can't seem to beat them in the top flight. And Thomas Frank has our number. Now, I have got no complaints, but I am going to turn around and say why and what I think was wrong with this performance. Now, before we get going, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow. Also, do check out our sponsors. Firstly, touchpointtelecoms.co.uk. Touchpoint Telecoms cover your business telecoms needs from Berkshire to Wiltshire, from Somerset to Dorset, and beyond as well. So do get in contact with Mark and the team and see how they can help. Also, do check out our main sponsors as well, Dental on the Banks at dentalonthebanks.co.uk for all your dentistry needs. And here is a little bit about them now. There we are. Thank you to our sponsors. So let's get stuck into this. Of course, the Bees sting us again. It is now, 6 games now without a win against Thomas Frank. The last time, you have to go back to that first leg of the Championship playoff semi-finals, which of course ended in defeat on Aguirre anyway. The Bees have our number, Thomas Frank has our number, and unfortunately again it was to be. Firstly, the lineup. I was not unhappy with the lineup. Of course, we played a very, very similar side with the one change, which was Zabanier coming in for James Hill. James Hill has done well, but Zabanier has been absolutely fantastic this season. You can understand why Andoni Iraola has gone with that. Of course, the team as it stood was Kepa in goal, Lewis Cook right back, Zabanier and Dean Howson, Kirkes on the left, Ryan Christie and Tyler Adams in that holding midfield role, Clive a little bit more advanced, Semenyo on the left, Tavernier on the right, Evan Nielsen up front. You looked at the Brentford side and you could see that defensively they might be a team that you could get at. Now, Brentford are a very interesting team because back at the start of the season, they were prolific at home. They really, really were strong at home. And of course, we went there earlier on in the year. We was beaten 3-2 in what was a very, very entertaining game. Unfortunately, they did get the better of us. Again, unfortunately, there was some mistakes in that game, which came to haunt us, just like there was this one as well. A lot will be said about one particular person. I said it after that Spurs defeat as well. I'm going to have to say it again, unfortunately, and hopefully performances improve, or otherwise he could find himself going back to Chelsea with Cherries not wanting him. But I'm also going to give you the reasons why I think Andoni Iraola does persist with him rather than giving Mark Travers, who is a fantastic shot stopper, a chance. Of course, Travers is at Middlesbrough at the moment, so unavailable, but at the same time, in my heart of hearts, I do like Mark Travers, and I do wish that he was still here to compete for that number one jersey. You looked at the Brentford side, though, going back to that Damsgaard in the centre. He pulls the strings. He's not one of those players that you would say is really flamboyant. He is their version of Justin Kluivert, but probably a lot more reserved. But he does pull the strings. He's a very good player. He finds lots of positions for other teammates, and therefore he's an integral part to their side. Um, do I need to actually remind anybody of Brian Mbembo as well? An absolutely fantastic player. I would really, really like him at Dean Court, as I would do that man at the front who seems to be scoring goals for absolute fun this season. Johan Wissa, again, fantastic player. So we had to be on our guard from the very start. And to be honest, in the early stages, we were the better side. And, so it proved. We did put in that fitting ball that Jan Elst, I think he was a bit unlucky personally, but it kind of cushioned off him into the back of the Brentford net. We were much, much the better side. We had the intensity with us. We was pressing high. We was being quick, and then things kind of started to slip apart. And what I mean by that is some of the passing was a little bit lackluster. There's certain players that I think are struggling, not bad players. I've seen loads of stuff on social media over the past 24 hours, and some of it is absolutely ridiculous, to be perfectly honest, because these players have actually got us into this position where we are fighting for Champions League football, and some fans are actually throwing them straight under the bus. I do not understand that in a million years, but the likes of Antoine Semenyo, I think he's due a rest. If you want my honest opinion, I think he's carrying a bit of a knock. And I think he's struggling. He's not really as intensive as he was earlier on in the season. Ryan Christie, I still think he's playing through the pain barrier a little bit, which is a real shame. He's a bit like the glue. He's one of the unsung heroes of this side. Everybody jumps at Cliver and the likes of Zabani House and Semenyo, Evan Nielsen. But you think Ryan Christie is kind of the engine room. You need that player in the engine room who is creative, thinks up things, will work 110%. Not saying that any of the other players don't, but he always seems to be there. He's a battler. You need that in a side. And Tyler Adams is really shining for me as well at the moment, doing a similar sort of thing. I think he's been very, very good, and I think he was fairly decent yesterday in this game as well. But like I say, I think Semenyo is playing with an injury. I think Ryan Christie's playing with an injury. I think Marcus Tavernier struggled a little bit. He wasn't himself. And personally, what I would have done was move Semenyo over to the right-hand side and probably start Luis Inistera, from probably the second half, start of the second half, because it was not working. It just didn't seem to be picking up. And like I say, I'm not saying anybody's a bad player, but I think that a rest is well and duly needed. I'm hoping Ryan Christie isn't going to get any minutes for Scotland, not because of Scotland, not because of Ryan Christie probably wants to play for Scotland in the international break, but because I think he needs that rest for this football club, and we are hunting for what is a massive, massive prize. Lewis Cook, right hand side. I think some of his passing was a bit of array. I think, in all honesty, I think that Kirkes had an absolutely fantastic game again. And Kirkes really stopped anything coming down that side. He was a real headache for Brian and Mbembo. And to be honest, it nullified Mbembo at the game. The problem was, and what I did see, throughout this match, is Johan Wissa was getting too much space. Now, this is too much space when he didn't have the ball. It gave Brentford now. It gave them options. It meant that Damsgaard could actually find him. It meant that Norgard could find the passes in. There was a lot of very, very good moves from Brentford into that. Now, I know that a lot of people are saying, well, Brentford, the Masters are shithousery. And, they were time wasting. It's part of the game. I know that Thomas Frank, and I know that, a lot of the Bournemouth fans don't really like him because of the watch tapping, but it's part of the game, guys. At the end of the day, Brentford manage it, and we have to, counteract that. So, at 1-0 up, I thought, well, we need to go and grab another one. I think if we had grabbed another one, I think that the impact and the comeback wouldn't have happened. We had that spell where we could have done that. Now, let's talk about the first goal for Brentford. And let's talk about somebody who has been brought up against, of course, in the Spurs reaction as well, and that is Kepa. He was at fault for quite a few of the goals actually when we went to the G-Tech earlier on the season. His positioning again was lackluster. Why he went for the ball at that point, I will never know in a million years. What the defenders should have been doing is making sure that they were first to that. It seemed like a complete and utter breakdown in communications at the back between the goalkeeper and the defence, which allowed Wissa, who is a very, very good player. I'm not doubting that. Brentford's attacking lineup is, I think can compete with most teams in the Premier League. I'm saying that, it can compete with most teams in the Premier League. And Johan Wissa absolutely hammered the ball home. Kepa, if he had got to it, then great. But it was, I don't think he should never have come for it. Should never have come for it. And this was a problem as well that we had with Neto last season, where he's coming for balls, and you thought, well, no, the defence should be doing that. There should be some communication. Now, I know why Andoni Iraola is favouring Kepa to Mark Travers, because Kepa can play the ball out from the back with his feet. And he does that very, very well. He can find other players, players pass back into him. He moves the ball very, very quickly. He is quite a skillful goalkeeper. Do we need a bloody skillful goalkeeper, though? Because honestly, I'd rather the security of Mark Travers, because I honestly don't think that Mark Travers would have come for that ball. Mark Travers would probably stood on his line and, okay, might still have gone in, but he would have commanded his defence a lot better than what Kepa did. And therefore, it gave Wissa a fantastic opportunity. It was a complete and utter mix-up. And then the second goal, I can't blame Kepa for this one, personally. But I think that the defence, again, went a little bit missing. Now, I'm not throwing anybody else under the bus, because we're in a great position in the Premier League. It's an off day. And these off days were always going to happen. But what do we need to do to beat Thomas Frank? That is the big, big question for me. And one of the reasons why I think, Thomas Frank had our number was because we didn't do anything out of the ordinary. And this is a danger. coming in to the last couple of months of the season, we need to do things a little bit differently. We need to mix things up. We need to maybe get Dango Watara on earlier to actually do something a bit, outlandish, that's, going to surprise Brentford, that's going to make them go, whoa, hold on a minute, what's actually happening here? Um, there was none of that. It was predictable. Thomas Frank has our number. He knows exactly how we're going to play against them, and he counteracts it very, very well. He doesn't dictate the play against us. Now, what we've done against a number of teams this season is we have dictated what we're going to do on a football field. Now that's great. That is a great move, because I don't think Eddie, because of the quality of players that we had that luxury. Whereas Andoni Iraola has, arguably, without a doubt, a better quality of players than we did back then. Now, don't get me wrong, the 2014, 2015 squad and all those squads under Eddie Howe are absolute legends for what they've done. We wouldn't be enjoying this if it wasn't for them. We wouldn't be enjoying this if it wasn't for Eddie. That's why I think these debates of, oh, who's better, Andoni Iraola or Eddie Howe, are complete and utter bullshit. But what I am saying here is that we sometimes have to change up and mix up, because what Eddie had to do was what Thomas Frank is doing with Brentford. Defensively, Brentford, I don't think are particularly strong. But what they do is they counteract teams very, very well. They don't really ever dictate a game. They might have dictated a game against Southampton this season, but Southampton are shite. But the thing is they counteract, and it's got to be one of two ways. If we're playing Manchester City, for example, which of course is going to be our next opponent in the FA Cup quarter-final, day out at Wembley, we might have to play that way. We might not be able to dictate the game against them, because Man City are that good. They have that much quality. They can control a game. If Rodri is on the pitch, or what would have been on the pitch, if he wasn't injured, they would dictate games against most teams in this division. And what teams will have to do is counteract those. They won't be able to play their normal game, or, if they don't play their normal game. This is what Thomas Frank does well. And Thomas Frank, as much as our fan base might dislike him and hate him, and I don't get it, because he's a very, very good manager. He was, of course, the watch tapping incident will wind anybody up. But honestly, he's a good manager who has our number, and what we needed to do was something differently. Now, I thought we might have done that with Luis Sinistera coming on, but it wasn't to be. It wasn't to be. Luis Sinistera, of course, was injured, after, I think it was maybe, I'm trying to think here, but I think he was only on the pitch for about 15 minutes. So he didn't really have that much impact time. And I think, personally, he probably come on a little bit late. We needed to make those changes at half time. David Brooks, again, I think what we might need to do, if Semenyo is playing with some sort of knock, why not play Brooks from the start? Brooks has shown he's good enough. Brooks has shown that he's fully recovered after all the adversity he's had to go through. He would certainly deserve his chance. James Hill, like I say, I think he's a good player. I think, again, he's probably got quite a lot to learn, but that's only going to come with time. Now, if we can see that Lewis Cook, for example, is struggling a little bit, which I think he did, some of his passing wasn't great. I've got to say that. It was a bit disappointing. Then James Hill can play in that position. We shouldn't be fearful of playing James Hill in that position. So overall, it was really a bit of a disappointing performance. I've got to say, well, it was a very disappointing performance, but I don't get some of the fan base turning around and throwing these lads under the bus, because what they've done is they've done something remarkable this season to get us into this position in the first place. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, this is a blip. It might be something that is a little bit of a kickstart ahead of that FA Cup game. Personally, if you ask me, I would rather win the FA Cup than, finishing those Champions League places. The main reason being it's silverware, it's a trophy, it's a major trophy. We've never done that in our history at this football club. If we can then keep hold of some of these players, I know Kirkes is probably likely to leave, despite what he says on his YouTube channel when he's gaming away. I don't get the gaming bit, but there we go. But it's quite interesting what he said about Liverpool. Um, then then if we can keep hold of the majority of these players, we can go again next season. We do have Julio Sola coming in. No doubt, Frano and Thiago Pinto have got other players in mind that they will bring into the fold. Again, like I say, the reason why Brentford keep getting the better of us and why they keep stinging us and why we've got such an allergic reaction to them is we was too predictable yesterday. We was too predictable. They knew what they were getting. They probably, and Thomas Frank, without a shadow of a doubt, watched several times over that game against Spurs the week beforehand and thought, this is the way we counteract them. This is what we're going to do. We're going to stop them playing the football, stop them getting the balls through. It was a little bit like what Fabian Hertzler's done as well this season to us. Like I say, that is my opinion. We sit, 10th in the league now. Okay, I'm a little bit gutted, considering, how we've done. Of course, Fulham winning doesn't really help. They go above us. So 10th in the league. We're still in the top half. Brentford are only 3 points behind us, mind. But we are we are still 5 points off Chelsea in fourth after they were beaten by Arsenal. There's every chance we could still get that Champions League place, but we need to snap out of it. We need to know to do something different. We're not going to win every single game now from now to the end of the season. Don't be silly. We're not going to win 9 games, but neither are Chelsea, neither are Man City, neither are Newcastle. Neither are Brighton, neither are Fulham, and neither are Aston Villa. Something will give. What we need to do is just make sure that A, we get through to the next round of the FA Cup, and we've got a fantastic day out at Wembley, or maybe even two, and maybe even seeing another trophy in that cabinet. How amazing would that be, going into the store and seeing the FA Cup trophy in that cabinet? Honestly, dream come true. But if that's not to be, let's keep going. Let's keep doing things differently. Let's keep dictating games that we can do. You look at our remaining games. Yes, we do have some toughies coming up, but there is some very, very winnable games in there. And hand on heart, how many points do I think that we need, or how many wins do I think we need to actually get a place at Europe's top table? I would say probably about 16 points should do it. Now, considering it does go down to fifth this season, so 16 points, it's very doable. It's very doable. All we need to do is just make sure that we just keep going, keep progressing, and when sides like Brentford come up against us, we do something different. Like I say, let me know what you think. Every opinion is valid here on this channel. So I'd be very, very interested to hear what all of you say, and what you think of the match. Do as well, if you're a Brentford fan, do check out our previews. They're very, very good. But also, we do have some special guests. We've had Adam Devlin from the Blue Tones on, and we've also had this man, and I've got the album here, Don't Go Making Plans by Hardfi. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic single. So please do go and watch Rich Archer and the interview I did with him about 10 months ago. And please do go and support the bands that we do welcome onto this show. It's not just that. We've had Richie Neville from Five. Of course, they're going on tour. They're actually in Bournemouth. So go get your tickets now. We've also had Gaz Whelan from the Happy Mondays, Damon Minchella from Ocean Colour Scene, Matt Priest from Dodgy. You name it. I'm going to miss somebody out here. Tom Meehan from Kasabian. There's loads and loads and loads of people that we've had on. And of course, we've had Omid Jalili, the comedian, on Tiff Nadell. Of course, he also took me around Thruxton as well at 120 miles per hour or something like that. It was very fast, albeit, and I was giggling out of sheer panic or sheer worry, but he knows what he's doing. So yeah, go watch that, and did an interview with him as well. And of course, we have had David Icke on here as well. So it's a very, very interesting interview, that one. And of course, who runs the Premier League? Well, you'll have to find out. David will explain it better than I do. Thanks again for joining us. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell button, share with your friends, share on Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, wherever you want. But thank you for joining me. Let me know your opinions. Up the Cherries, and see you soon.
The Talksport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the Talksport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search Talksport Fan Network.